ain't chasing no clout, man. I been that nigga, man. You know what I'm saying? My light been shine. It's dim now, but I'm still me. You know, and that's what people don't understand. You know, I don't want that light no more.
Man, speaking of your past, you said you had a doctor on payroll?
Yeah, I had a doctor, police, everything, man. You know.
Man, how much were you paying the doctor?
I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
Man, nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me, bro.
Man, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, bro.
For sure.
Been on some big channels lately, bro.
Yeah, man. You know, I got I guess, you know, like they say, man, because I'm the father of the situation, you know. I supposed to forfeit in my life, I guess, to be cool with the world. But the world don't love nobody, you know. And they saying, you know, a father's supposed to protect his son. I agree with that. But a son can also protect his father too. So, you know, the road go both ways, you know. As I tell anybody, you know, am I 100% right? No. Am I going to try to justify it? No. But somebody had to do some thinking. Everybody in jail, who going to help who?
Exactly. Right. Somebody else there. Somebody else.
Right. Got to have a real backbone when you're in jail, because everybody fade away. It's just like you dead, but you living. You alive on the outside, but dead on the inside. But, you know, I can't expect the world to understand. You know, I just like to speak my piece, bro. You know, speak my mind, speak my point of view. You know how I feel. You know,
Man, I got some questions. You said you was gonna count them on this, so I ain't.
I might don't count them on you though.
Real bad.
Yeah.
Anything counts, and I appreciate everything.
Yes, sir.
But I'm gonna start off a little rocky. You got accused of tried for 4 bodies. Uh, how did you beat him?
Charges dropped. You know, insignificant evidence.
That was back in like
That was in the '90s.
90s. So less of a technology present.
Right. A lot of everything. You know, back then. You know.
Was Jackson wild back then?
Oh, Jacksonville always been wild. You know, Jacksonville always been the murder capital of Florida. Jacksonville was like that since 1988. The crime just started declining in Jacksonville. For us, the murder's still happening in Jacksonville, but not how it always happened. Ain't but two things you can be out here. You could be the villain or you could be the prey. Period.
Well, oh, you was shot before?
Yeah, I've been shot. I done been shot 3 times. You know, I got shot. I done been shot in the back, the hip, and the shin. Yep.
Talk about. Can you walk us through the first time you was shot?
First time I got shot, it happened in like 91, maybe 91, 92. It was at a Super Bowl party in the neighborhood, and a situation occurred. A few people got shot. You know, somebody didn't make it. It was all, man, young and stupid, man. You know, and you know, bro, like situations like that, you got to tread lightly with them. You know, interviewing with them. You know, but that's about the most I can say about that.
Uh, What did you learn from doing 11 years in the feds?
Shit, I learned that I ain't want to go back. And I really got a deeper look into the system, how the system worked. You know, feds like the college. You know, you go to college, you're gonna see you're gonna see the judicial system different. You know, you got in the feds, two people can come up with a conspiracy on the third person that they don't even know, and he gonna go to jail. And they gonna get out. Ain't but two people in the Fed. One that told and one wish he told.
You mentioned uh, going to the feds and realizing that you were small fry. Not to say that what you were doing was trivial, but you realize like they have big steppers in jail and they have big complex things going on as far as alleged criminal uh, accusations.
Well, you gotta understand in the Feds, you got dudes from everywhere. And it ain't about the stepping in the Feds, it's about the money. You know, dudes who have money, you see dudes in the Feds done took 10, $15 million from them. Dudes done got caught 500, 600 keys of dope. You know, then you thinking in your mind, I wasn't even doing nothing out there. You know? So the Feds, you gonna run across everybody. Especially when it's getting money. I done seen dudes paperwork where they done forfeited $2 million, and still got money. You run into some wealthy dudes in there. But this is everybody. A dude rather be broke and free than locked up and rich. You know?
Right there.
Yeah.
I seen somebody ask a guy a question if I gave you $1 million but you had to do life the next day after you got it, who would you choose? He said, well, I don't want the million.
Nah. I just seen a dude on the news though, man. They tried to get him to forfeit $1 million or take a year in jail. He took the year in jail.
But a year
Yeah.
not bad though.
Yeah, you don't want ain't enough money for no life sentence. Mm-mm.
Well, at the time of your arrest, for the couple of tons of cocaine that you were arrested, alleged, what was your status in the hood at that time?
I was a big dog, it wasn't, I don't want to sound too arrogant, but it wasn't at that time when I was arrested, I don't believe it was nobody in the hood bigger than me. I fed the whole hood at that time, There's some dudes done came through. There was some dudes before me that was bigger than me. But ain't no dudes that never did it like me in Jacksonville. Period. I'm standing on that. Period. You know? Fed, I got hit with the Fed, man. I probably about 700,000 up. Just had a fresh bomb in. Had that beard. You know. So it was sweet. It was just, when you circle somebody gonna always slip. So
Always a mistake.
yeah, it's always gonna be that mistake that's gonna cost everybody. Some mistakes we just have to overlook though. When you partners, when you young, it be different. Dude make a mistake, you look at it different. You see things different.
Is the streets dead compared to then to now?
The streets been dead. I don't know where they come up with the streets just died. The streets been dead. It's If it wasn't dead, it was on life support. And you gotta look at it now, bro. I could take 10 keys and put right there, and I could put a Draco right there. These young boys, they gonna take the Draco. They don't care about money. Half of them staying in their mama house by the goddamn wash and dry. It's a different mentality. And you got the older guys, they kind of scared of them. And they rightfully so, they should be. Because every older guy, he gonna have a conscience of going to jail. The young dudes, they don't have no conscience. They don't care nothing about going to jail because they ain't never been until they get there. So they don't have a conscience on going to jail, or not. So that get them the upper hand to the older dudes. The older dudes who getting money, they don't want nothing to do with them. If you give them front them your dope, you come get your dope, they might kill you and keep you dope and everything. They gonna keep you dope, put it that way. So compared to back then and now, yes, it's dead because now you may have a few dudes with money. Back then you had a lot of dudes with money. Back then in the 90s, you could serve anybody. Now you can't serve anybody. You gotta know them. You gotta damn near know their whole family tree to serve them now. Back then you could serve anybody. Yep.
Can you speak on Obama's first step back and which ultimately led to you getting 11 years instead of 22 years?
Well, I think it was the crack ratio that got changed. And that's a good point you brought up too, because a lot of people think that I got out of prison for telling. But that's how I got out of prison. The First Step Act. They changed the ratio with the crack and the cocaine. And at one point, it was 1 to 100. And I think when they changed it came to 1, it equaled out everything. So that dropped everybody sentence significant, and it took me right out the door by me already being locked up. I probably stayed in jail a few months after it came, in prison a few months after it came out. But I ain't get out of jail for no goddamn on 5K1 and stuff like that right there. What they say, they say I done told on so many people, man, and I was an informant, but ain't nobody, they don't care to bring the paperwork. They don't care to find the dude who I told on. They don't care. I just done told on this many people, and which is false. Only case I ever testified in was this case with my son. Only time I ever gave a sworn statement was this case with my son. Only time I ever did a deposition was this case with my son. And they can dig up how far they want to dig up, but it don't matter. I done learned to let the hate brush off my shoulder.
When when the stuff happened to some you like out of the game, when you gave it up?
I was out of the game, man. Talking about the situation now.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
situation with
yeah. I was out of the game. I was already good. I wasn't slinging no gun. I wasn't selling no dope. I just had bought my 30 acres of land. Was in the process of building on that. Settling down. Was finna open up my farm, and I wanted a chicken farm. And I was finna open up my farm and everything. And this situation here happened, so that prevented that. You know,
So you essentially, not to get into your business, but you won when you left out of the game.
I won when I left out the game because I don't really want to say I won, but I left out the game with a nice little piece of change, enough to get me going in the direction that I wanted to head in. I say it like that. When I caught this case, ain't nobody check on me. Ain't nobody see that I have a lawyer because I'm already prepared, to take care of myself. It's just like when I get out of jail, ain't nobody came and dropped no bag on me. I go to jail, I got 3 semis still rolling for me. Got real estate, was still making a little money for me. A few people came by and, gave me a little, I ain't gonna, a little gratitude money, at the same time, but And nobody came and dropped no bag. I ain't looking for it neither, you know, because it's like they hate you on the internet, but they love you in person. Period. Yep.
When you got out of jail for doing 11 years and your kid Ksoo included, well, you said your child Ksoo, including the others, were wilding in the street. You claim that your kids were beyond wild, or basically wild was an understatement.
But when I came home, them boys was into all type of everything, man. You know, I never said these boys was an angel. You know, people act like I know what was going on. This ain't something that we sit down and we talk about. I don't let my sons, daughters even cuss talking to me. You know, people say I raised Queso this way, I introduced him to this life. That's a lie. Who do that? Who gonna send their child on a hit? That don't always have to go like you planned it. You know, they was in the boys was catching cases, going to jail, in prison. They was doing all type of things. And I felt some responsibility in that because I left them out here to be a man too early. They had to become a man so early. And I felt bad for that. But what I wish I would have done was sit them down and let them know, look, we gonna go from here to here. Anything else we ain't going about. You know, that's what we gonna do. Period. You know, and it would have been better. You know, I didn't set no boundaries. I didn't draw no lines. And that was a big mistake, you know.
So, finish.
I let fatherhood and friendship mix. And that's a bad concoction together. It's got to be a boundary between that. And that's what I didn't do because I didn't know. You know, I had to learn that. Too bad I had to learn this the hard way, but I had to learn that, you know, you got to set boundaries with your children because if I had boundaries in place, I would have never got that phone call today to come pick nobody up. And that's my fault, you know, but it is what it is.
Do you feel like your reputation guided Queso and your other children into this life?
Definitely. Because it's like this, bro. When you not here to tell your own story to your kids, the streets tell a story. And it ain't gonna be a good one. It may sound good, but it ain't gonna be a good one. You think, boy, your daddy this. Boy, your daddy like this, do. That there, your daddy this, you know, they ain't gonna tell. That's what they make your kids feel like they gotta live up to, you know? And my reputation, it definitely played a part in them trying to live up to a certain reputation.
Uh, why you think you mentioned earlier if you put 10 keys in front of the YNs or the younger generation of today, they would choose a Draco instead of the keys. Did you like being that you were a type of guy that was kind of like more on the smarter side of, I don't want to say the people that's, they're stupid or they're not as smart, but when you organizing money and organizing, patterns and making whams and booms, you know what I'm saying? Like it take a lot of brain power. It's not for the average, thinking person. So you think like people choose the easier route, or they feel like it's cooler and more admirable to be, a step.
See, it's a trend. You know, it's a trend because and they gonna follow that trend. It's like it wasn't drill music back in my day. It was getting money music. Now it's drill music. Now it wasn't no internet back then. Now you got the internet. So it's a trend that they follow. Just 6 years ago, a man wouldn't inbox a man. Now these young dudes, they'll inbox you and they'll say it's a different state of mind. Like they fatherless. They don't have, they growing up in the blind. They walking through the dark, feeling their way through. You know, ain't nobody in their neighborhood that they can see getting money that they want to look up to. They shoot them. They believe in rappers. Anything a rapper say, anything a rapper can get on there and say anything. They can say they took they could say they took $100 and turned it to 100,000. They'll kill you for not believing that. It's an influence of things what's going on now. And what these dudes don't understand, they only consumers to these rappers. They only consumers to them. I ain't got 10% of these rappers that was really out there in the streets. Yeah, they probably been around somebody that made some money or did something, had some money, but I ain't got 10% of them out there. And that's what influenced these young boys, That's what they want to see. Shooting, they want to get on the internet, they want to tell on themselves. You got to think about it. Half of the people we know now, we wouldn't even never knew if it wasn't for the internet. Like, I ain't never seen everybody on the internet got money in their hand. Man, if that was going on in the 90s, man, dudes are going on a world tour robbing. All you got to do is watch the internet. You're going to see where they at. You're going to know everything. And that's a new trend now. Everybody got money, holding money in their hand now. That's a new trend. Being in front of the cameras is a new trend. We got to adjust to being in front of the cameras. We got to adjust to talk in front of the cameras because that ain't so. We used to hide from the cameras, hide from pictures. That's the new thing. It's a new world, and you gotta adjust to. We gotta adjust. You know what I'm saying? It's just like we gotta this a new hustle. Okay, then it's money involved. It's legal. I'm gonna try to get me a little bit of it because it's enough for everybody. So it's a new thing. It's just shoot.
The streets is dead, but do you think there's enough money in the dope game like it was in the 90s?
No, man. Listen, they made heroin play out. You know what I'm saying? You can't sell heroin no more. They won't fentanyl.
Crazy.
You ain't hearing about crack.
Yeah,
You hearing about Molly. Shit they can make in the closet in their house. So I don't think it's been fucked up, and it ain't just get fucked up. It's been telling dudes, and I ain't saying it's right, but dudes just the internet just learned dudes how to look it up and see it. You know, look how much old stuff they coming up with. Dudes that's telling, dudes that's this old stuff because now the internet done gave you a reach with at the tip of your fingers. You know, and that's just how it is.
Uh, you said you had a relationship with Fulio's mother for the beef.
Yeah, we was her and one of my kids' mother. They were friends. And she done been over to our house. I done been over to her house, and I never had nothing against her. And because she can't control what Fulio do or what Fulio say. I never had nothing against her. It's just till we probably got an point in our life where we couldn't just naturally trust each other. You know, she can't control that. No mother can control what their child do. No father can control what they child do. I don't know what make people think that the parent can. Look how many rich people go out there and shoot up a school, shoot up a church. They weren't raised that way. Their parents can't control what they do. You know, Fulio done said things about me aimed at my sons and them. I, you know, that's just what it is.
Uh, you said that one of your children are kin to are cousins with Fulio.
Yeah, they well through it's like Fulio got some sisters that's some kin to my sons now. So that kind of make them, kin because Fulio's sisters, they from his daddy. And when you can have the same mama but different daddies, that make you half brothers and sisters. But if you all got the same daddy and different mamas, that make you full-blooded sisters and brothers. And that's how they kind of sort of some kin. But when the line drawn and you got to get on the side, you got to get on the side. I done seen brothers, I done seen cousins, uncles. They had to pick a side, and that's just what it be.
Did they know they were?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you got to think they were all kids before. So
They've hung out before.
yeah, they got to all think that they done growed up together. Shit like that right there. I feel like Fulio just was the voice of that side of the town. And I feel like he throwed his life away. I feel like he could have been a good rapper? Hell yeah. You know, and he got accustomed to death, and that's how these young dudes is. Like they dying to get to the graveyard, and he accepted it, you know what I'm saying? I feel like he gave up because he did something he ain't never really done before he died, you know. And I guess he accepted his faith. A lot of these boys accept their faith, but they don't understand what the pain and the hurt that they leaving behind. But shit, man, they don't care, man. I don't know. I don't understand them. And I ain't gonna try to understand them. You know, they want to die. They want to go to jail. I see them in jail. They bums in jail. They can't get no commissary. They can't get no lawyer. They can't get no bond money. They got to rob in jail and survive, and you run around here doing all that right there. They mama glad they in jail because now she ain't got to deal with them, worrying about them jumping on their mama. These young boys, they jump on their mama, they beat their mamas up nowadays. Man, we wouldn't have never thought about doing no stuff like that. You know? And that's why I want to, try to change my narrative eventually to the parents, because a parent got to save their own child if they can. I don't care how much they say now. It's a new world now. You know, it's just a new world. Period.
Uh, you mentioned Fulio did something, and he said he gave up. You mentioned he did something he never did before. What was that?
Well, he was dropping his location. He was going live wherever he was at. And he got arrogant because what I'm saying, God had done spared his life a few times. That wasn't the first time that someone tried to take his life. But with a person that a person that's hated like him, he should have never got that arrogant and got that sloppy. You know,
Nah, I was doing the news, and I I got the news when Julio got killed. And actually, I was in Orlando at Disney with my kids. I was matter of fact, I was in the hotel. We had just got back from out at the park, and I was, winding down. They
Yeah,
invited me up something, man, and chilling in the car. And I seen the news, man. I said, man, damn, brother, think this dude was around my age, and I think he definitely was younger than me, but
yeah,
around my age, though.
yeah,
Everybody think that you're in your 30s, you're older. But
yeah. No, that's yeah,
we're around the same
yeah.
age.
You're
So I
right.
said, man, this dude, yeah, I'm enjoying, you know, Orlando. And I think he got killed in
Tampa.
Tampa. And
Yeah,
that was
Tampa.
like when I was coming out to Orlando, I seen the exit for Tampa.
Yeah,
I was like, damn, bro, that's right around the corner.
yeah. No, it definitely was, and I think he got comfortable. I think he believed that wouldn't nobody come dry that far or do something, but certain things that he probably did and said, I ain't gonna say, yeah, well, that it was personal with people. And I think those guys wasn't gonna give up until they, you know, certain things is just personal. Certain things people ain't gonna let go. And that's just what it is.
Uh, what was Queso and Ace relationship like?
I think they was best friends. If they wasn't best friends, they was real close. I can remember the first time Queso brought Ace to my house. Queso always knew, he always believed in Ace, that Ace was gonna blow up. He always, and Ace couldn't control them, because I think if Ace could have controlled them, a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened. You know. But then it got personal. It got personal again. So, with Ace brother getting killed, best friend, getting killed. So, it probably got personal. But I think if it was left up to Ace, to be totally honest speaking, a lot of stuff wouldn't have went the way it would have went. You know.
Uh, how was Ace after his brother got killed?
Well, that's like really around the time that I met him. He never really, I ain't never seen him in no down mode about it, but anything like that gonna change you. You know, it's called trauma, because he was there. And I think that played a big role on him. But man, Ace a good dude though, man. I don't have nothing bad to say about him. As I tell anybody, I just didn't like the fact that he said he went broke, paying for Queso lawyer when he know that wasn't the truth. I done seen a few times he done said certain things about me, but I get it. See, when you get it, see, the thing of it is, I'm not in denial of what happened. So a lot of things people say and do, it's not going to affect me, because I'm in the reality of what went on. I'm not saying no, that wasn't me. I mean, I know I can't say that, but no, I'm not justifying that to try to argue that. I got my point of view of that. They got theirs. It don't matter if they don't understand it. It's what I understand. So, you know, but Ace a great dude, man. We all got flaws. You know, I ain't got nothing. I ain't gonna lie on him though. He don't fuck with nobody. Say he did not pay for that lawyer. But that make him a bad person? No, because at that time he could have been a bit in a bad spot with his money, and I just think he shouldn't even said nothing. You know, instead of saying he went broke paying for his lawyer, unless he really went broke and came back up again. But he's saying that he did it. It's a narrative that I lied, that I'm lying on him. I'm chasing clout. I ain't chasing no clout, man. I've been that nigga, man. You know what I'm saying? My light been shine. It's dim now, but I'm still me. And that's what people don't understand. I don't want that light no more.
speaking of your past, you said you had a doctor on payroll.
Yeah, I had doctor, police, everything, man.
Man, how much were you paying the doctor?
I don't want to, you know what I'm
All
saying?
right, I
I
got
don't really want to get into it, dude. He ain't really getting no trouble, you know what I'm saying? Thank God, you know,
you. What was he on staff for? By from?
anything, anything that he could take care of.
How how would you meet a doctor? Just
It depends on what kind of circle you get in. You know what I'm saying? I was into some good circles. You know what I'm saying? You know, met some nice people that was in good spots in their life. And they introduced me to this person, introduced me to that person. Me, I'm kind of like an opportunist. You know what I'm saying? If I got a Cadillac and I go to the Cadillac dealership, I'm only trying to go there one time because you know when I go there. I'm looking for the dude that's gonna work on the side. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna be no, cause you know how dealers gonna tax you when you go to dealers get your car fixed. Any car I get, if I got a Ford, I'm going there one time. I'm gonna look for the dude to make the car. Hey man, you do this who in here do this on the side? And that's who I'm going to after that. So that's what I do. You know,
uh, so the doctor, uh, I'm having a brain fart right now. You really messed me up with this one. I'm trying not to ask like too much of pressing questions, but like he was kind of like Mr. White. If something happened, like I think Mr. White, was that Pulp Fiction, the cleanup guy.
yeah,
Not much like not he don't come to clean up, but whenever something happens,
yeah. Something happen, he'll take care of you, get you right, and you keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? But the little dude, butter, he told on the doctor. So, you know what I'm saying? Because he got shot and I took him there. You know, he told on the man, I can't expect that doctor not to fold. He got a big doctor's office. You know what I'm saying? He ain't finna mess his career up, his family up for us.
how long how long was your relationship with the doctor? Like how long? Like
Shit, about 10 years.
damn.
I still got a relationship with him, you know. But I ain't going to him out of bounds no more. And I sat down and me and him had a conversation about the whole situation. He real cool, man. He understood, you know.
The police. You mentioned that they were real gangsters. If they wasn't police officers, they would be.
Oh yeah. Boy, they wasn't police officers. They was real gangsters. But then again, when I think about it, the badge could have made them tougher than what they really was in real life.
So I got a big question. This is a good question that came to my head. Do you think the guys that's pursuing the street life should join the police academy and maybe be dirty cops? Might get away with more than trying to.
Hell no. Hell no. They still out there though. That'll never they know they'll never be able to clean the force up. They still out there. But I don't think so. Shit, they need to go join the army. They want to shoot. Shit. Yeah. Go join the Marines or something like that. Shit.
I was saying that too. I was like, do you see a lot of talent out here that could be used in the Marines? They might could be getting paid for doing something
Well,
illegally.
once they get polished up, they probably would be, because that's an art, shooting. But they just shoot so many times that's why they hit. You know, it's an art. It's just like a dude who boxed. He already knew how to fight. He just got polished up. You know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, Ksoo and Crazy K was muscle for ATK.
All day. You ain't gonna hear nothing about no ATK from this point on, and talking about no violence. You ain't gonna hear nothing. Everybody gonna be rappers now.
Damn.
And you ain't finna hear nothing out them boys. Period. If it wasn't for them, man, I can only imagine.
Damn. Uh, uh, the group KTA was Julio,
Right,
and ATK was Ace.
right.
How far away were they from each other in Jackson?
Oh, they're a long ways from each other. They're a good little ways from each other. You know, you got to consider the west side and the north side. You know, and just like you know, Ace just was the face of ATK. That wasn't. He didn't start that. You know, that really wasn't his brand. See, a lot of people don't know that. But he was just the face of it.
Crazy K started it.
Right. Yeah. He the one started that.
Crazy K is your other son.
Yeah.
He unfortunately was shot 3 times in the head.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
survived.
Oh yeah. He living. He moving just like me and you right now. He just had his equilibrium a little off, but for be shot in the head 3 times, he in good shape right now.
Can you walk us through that situation when that happened?
Well, we was at a club. One of my other sons, he had a performance, and we left the club. I guess dudes were stalking us because the situation was already publicized that we was gonna be there, and I guess they probably was stalking us. And I did all the precaution things, leaving the club, not to be followed, but then end up at the last minute getting off the expressway, stopping at a red light, and that's how they caught up with us. Yeah.
So, uh, in that moment, uh, like, what was your thoughts when you heard the shots ring out? I heard it was over 100 shots that was shot.
Yeah. I mean, shit, to get away. Not panic. Once you realize you've been caught down bad, it's phase 2, flight or fight. It's time to flight.
You said you were saying that you mentioned just now that you didn't want to panic, and when you got to the hospital, you were looking at everybody's wounds and you were seeing how gruesome it was, and you mentioned that you seen uh, brain guts and stuff
Brain
like that.
matter, yeah. Seen brain matter, man. I seen it was some dudes in that car that got shot a lot of times, 7, 8 times. That's a lot of times to get shot, you know. And dudes couldn't move, paralyzed, everybody was kind of conscious besides one person.
Wow.
You know.
Just you.
I was conscious. Everybody was conscious. I got shot in the back, but I was conscious through the whole situation. Because I was driving.
You was driving. Yeah, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Um, After that, a guy by the name of Lil Lil Bull,
little buck.
Lil Buck,
Yeah,
Lil Buck, uh, made a diss song and alluded to some uh some facts that happened that night, and it eventually escalated to Ksoo and Butter going to retaliate.
yeah. He just made a song, man. He had nothing to do with the situation. Everybody keep thinking that Queso was rocking out for me, for somebody who shot me. That's not true. He made a diss song. He really threw himself in the water. He put his own self in that situation. He didn't even have to be in that situation, and it eventually cost him his life.
Cloud chase.
Cloud chasing, trying to be cool. Well, I guess he was trying to get some points for Fulio on them.
Uh, when you got the call initially, you didn't know what had happened or nothing. You just was coming to give your son a ride.
Yeah, I ain't know nothing, man. I found out, afterwards, and people saying that why I didn't put him out the car. Who do that? Let's be realistic. Yeah, okay, I need to get them somewhere, get them out my shit, but you don't just pull over, man. Hey, man, y'all gotta go. What if they still had a gun? Blow my goddamn brains out and took the car and pushed me out the car. Who thinks like that? You know, I didn't know what was going on. If I knew what was going on, I was part of the plan, I'd have went all the way with it. Period.
You mentioned that uh the day that Moody and the day that all six of y'all were in the car and y'all got shot. You mentioned that you should have let Moody and Red Dot bleed out.
Yeah, because really, Moody really the root of the problem that I'm going through now. He the root of Ksoo situation. He the root. He broke that case for them people. You know, Moody, that was my Muslim brother. We done prayed together. We done stayed together. He wore a wire on butter, knowing the ripple effects of that wire that he wore on him. He ain't like butter was just gonna get in trouble for that wire. He knew what was said on that wire was eventually gonna get everybody in trouble. And they still gave him 20 years.
So so first it was Moody that told and wore wire, and then Butter eventually
Yeah.
told.
It was Moody wore the wire on butter. Once butter get caught on the wire, butter tell everything. Everything.
Shit. Seemed like I done did better than I thought. Shit, I remember most of it. That day, Queso made a social media post and he said, "Kill a nigga and get my toes done," which was used in court against him. You asked him to take it down, but altercation ensued, or father and son.
Yeah, it was some private stuff. It wasn't a situation where we got into it on the internet or nothing like that. It's a lot of posters that Queso did that I used to always be against. And I used to always tell him to take that stuff down because I don't come from that area, and I wasn't trying to adjust to that area. If I did something and I felt good about it, I'll go in the bathroom and jump up and down in the mirror. And that's what the advice I gave him. Take that shit down, man. Why is you doing that? And he felt like I was old. I don't understand, what's going on. And then look, you can't tell me that one day he gonna sit back and think, man, it's all the shit my daddy was trying to preach to me, what got me where I'm at now. Because I was against everything. Whether people know it or not, I ain't got to prove it to them. You know, just like I say, who I was outside of my door of my house wasn't who I was on the inside of my house. You know, and it's a lot of posters, numbers of posters that I always me and him get into it. Me and him done got into it physically, about stuff that, I jacked him up or something like that right there. He ain't gonna fight me back. I don't know if he'll fight me now, but he ain't gonna fight me back. You know what I'm saying? But at that time, he wouldn't, fight me back.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. You try to talk him out of that because basically being a flashy murderer or taking claim or glory kills
Right.
for stuff, you know what I mean, that can get you essentially locked up. And you basically are the opposite of that. You're doing things on the hush quiet. You got you got uh, from what I seen, from what I heard and what I've learned about you. It seemed like you had a nice organization, money smooth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like seeing that, seeing that how people just operate so wild now, it's just
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't want no part of it. I don't want him in my, I don't even want to be around him. I don't even care to talk to him, period.
man. What's crazy is the little young dudes around me. They had two younger guys that died, but I kind of get the vibe from them too. Like they would rather go out in the a blaze of a gun rather than
Yeah.
in the homes of their lover with their children
No,
around.
without a doubt. That's what they want, man. They messed up, man. It's sad though. You know, it's terrible. You know what I'm saying? It ain't. It's man. They mind frame is sad, man. Like it's unreal, man. I can't even think of a word to place with their mind frame. You know?
I guess it's a trend, man.
Yeah, it's a trend.
Well, man,
It's a deadly trend.
that.
Yep.
Well, man, I hope everybody stay safe and stay out the streets. The streets dead. You know what I'm saying? Get in these internet streets, pursue something meaningful, bro, and stay out the way. Or if you're gonna do the crime, like at least do it smart, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's best, man, to try to. Man, these young dudes got a whole chance, man, to get a career. You know, you gotta think dudes working, making more money than dudes hustling. You know, but you gotta think though, these young dudes they don't know math, so they ain't gonna understand that. Half of them ain't went past the sixth grade. You know, you got shooters and killers, man, 12, 13 years old, man. You know, maybe one day the world will switch and go in a different direction. You know, hopefully.
I know I said this last question. Do you feel like we're living in the end days? Feel like this the children of the corn?
Nah, I don't feel like it's gonna get better, but I don't feel like it's the end days. You know, nothing like that. I don't believe in all that type of stuff. Put it that way. You know, my belief system got my mind set up a whole different way. Yeah.
Well, man, it was nice having you on, bro.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you too, man. You know,
Next
pulling
time,
up on me. You know, probably have to sit down and do it again. You know,
oh, definitely,
for sure.
definitely. With your experiences, bro, I had a bunch of more questions I could have asked you, bro. I learned, man, you got a deep background.
Yeah. No, it's deep. You know, it's deep, bro. And believe it or not, the surface ain't even been scraped yet.
Man, man. Well, man, look, we gonna as much as you will let off, you know, that you will let off and let us know,
Yeah,
man. Yeah, man.
for sure.
Hopefully, man, next time, man.
For sure.
Definitely.
All right,
Yo,
bro.